Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. This week I have Dave Goodfellow with me. If you're watching live, we are on Facebook and YouTube right now. And if you're listening back, obviously on the podcast, then wherever you're driving to or whatever you're listening, then pay attention. Dave and I met on Clubhouse. We seem to have connected through this magical channel that I think most people are connecting on these days. And we both share the same passion in the short-term rental game. So I thought it was a good fit to have him on the show, and we'll just kind of dig into, I guess, Airbnb and everything short-term rentals got to offer over the next sort of 20, 30 minutes or so. If you are watching live, ping any questions in and we'll get them answered for you. But yeah, Dave, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, no problem. It's been a funny ride these last, was it 3 or 4 weeks now? Didn't know each other before. Feel like we've got some sort of bromance going on over the old Clubhouse. But yeah, it's great to be on. Thanks for having me.
No, my pleasure. So yeah, we're just chatting away offline about all the ski holidays and holidays we're looking forward to getting back to, hopefully once the mess is over. But yeah, I think let's start with a point that you did raise where, March the 26th, we got locked down. And as you said, life changed and we thought we were going to lose, your business, I mean, let's just talk about that a bit, because I think we've all been there, and anybody that is, I think currently, you coach as well as I do. And right now, a lot of the objections I think I get sometimes as well is it a good time to get into this game? Because, it's still rumbling on. So let's start there. Let's dig into that, eh?
Yeah. Okay, cool. So look, it was 26th of March. I forget the date, but if it was that, I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna take it. So when Boris come on and he was like, right, no more leisure travel, no more business travel, we were like, what? That's my business gone. It's all gone, right? But it wasn't. We know that now. So, it was just a case of changing the mindset a little bit and working out where you can get different business from, which you guys have done successfully as well. We kind of had to switch up what we were doing, had to change very quickly. I'm not quite sure I like the word pivot because that gets pushed about a bit too much, but you know what I mean.
It's like the word unprecedented. It's like they go hand in hand, don't they?
It's the word like adapt and pivot. I think it's been overused so much in these last coming up for 12 months. It's unbelievable. But yeah, so we just had to switch it up and look for different avenues, which again, we've talked about this on different channels, Ryan. We looked at the NHS, key workers, and we just kind of focused on, my mindset around this was like, right, well, normally we go to business and leisure travelers, but there's got to be some businesses that are thriving off the back of COVID, right? So there's going to be certain areas that we can focus on that are going to be busy. So one was the NHS, key workers was the next one. So, refineries, power stations, all that sort of stuff. We started opening up conversations with different people and started filling our properties from there. And we did all right out of the back of COVID. I say we did all right out of the back. That sounds awful, but we've kind of grown month on month, and revenue's grown month on month, and we've come out of it stronger. And I think people that have kind of stayed with it and persevered and kind of done all the things that you've done and we've done, they've come out of the back of it even stronger.
Yeah, I think it's. Before COVID, it was easy to just take a few pictures and put them on Airbnb and you got bookings, right? You didn't really have to run a business. There was no marketing involved. There was no prospecting involved, all that sort of stuff. You didn't have to be creative with your ideas to bring people in like most businesses do. Whereas that happened, statistics, and I know this because I had to submit it to the council, we had 471 bookings cancel within 7 days of March the 26th. Wow. Which was a total of over £80,000 worth. So, you talk about the shock, and I actually got sick of turning my emails on because it was just cancellation.
Yeah, do you know what? Exactly the same as you. I said to my business partner Chris, who kind of does all the tech side of the business, I was like, how do I turn these off? It's not good for me. I'm trying to go out and get more sales and get more business in, and all I'm getting is every time I get someone else is hit with like 3 cancellations. I've got to turn it off.
I know it was torture. Then obviously Airbnb did what they did with the money side of things. But anyway, back to the point. I think businesses then became businesses. it was no longer a hobby. And, I kind of, fortunately for me, and I think you're the same, we were kind of doing that beforehand anyway. So it was just a natural progression of getting better at that. But I think the hosts who weren't doing that and were doing it as a hobby, they had to quickly form into a business or die, and they did. A lot of them give keys back. A lot of them, went out of the game.
We call it the side hustle, right? So people who had, Airbnb as a kind of sideline business or a side hustle rather than working on it full time or having a structure behind it or a real, like a business plan behind it. I think you're right. I think they just didn't survive it and have dropped out of the market. We've seen a lot of that, right? Which again has been pretty good for the likes of you and I who've done that with our businesses.
Yeah. And I think that's where, people thinking, is this the right time to get into this game? I actually think it's the perfect time because let's say you're starting right now today after listening to this. By the time you probably get your first unit sort of set up and over the line, it could be a couple of weeks down the line, maybe even 4. You've got to think by then we're starting to come to the end of what is right now the lockdown in the UK. Depending on when this podcast airs, we might be a bit further down the line. But, so when that happens, and I think we're constantly talking about this on Clubhouse, is there's going to be a boom. There is going to be a boom. And I've got my opinions on why. Do you want to maybe divulge why you think?
Yeah, look, I'm happy to jump in there. I mean, we call it in our business the perfect storm, right? So we all know before the pandemic hit that serviced accommodation was very much a buzzword, and people were jumping on and doing it as a side hustle. They were doing rooms in their house. They were picking up rent to serviced accommodation deals, and there was lots of people coming into it. And we completely in our areas that we operate in, we just saw a month-on-month growth of operators come into the market. Well, those operators, they were driving down prices. So you're getting new people coming into the market. They maybe didn't have as many overheads as a proper business would have. And they were being able to undercut you on your prices. Now, because they didn't have the kind of infrastructure behind the businesses that, maybe like we have in ours, they weren't able to go out and reach get the reach like that we would normally do through our marketing, our prospecting, or wherever that might be. And they're the ones that have kind of dropped out of the market, right?
Yeah.
So and we've seen a huge amount. I think at one point there was about 30 or 40% of operators had dropped out the serviced accommodation market. Now that's massive, right? It's huge. Now. Yeah. That trend has continued. So it came back a little bit in the summer. So when we opened up in July, August and September and October, they were good months, and people started coming back to the market. You could see it. It took a rise again from operators that are in the market running Airbnbs or serviced accommodation. Well, now we've had another lockdown. You had one in November, and then obviously in end of December, beginning of January. That's completely dropped a load of people out again. So when I talk about this quite a lot in our other sessions that we have, but when you have a reduced supply or a huge drop in supply, it's simple economics, right? So if you drop in supply and the demand comes back, your price points just completely change. And that's what's going to happen, right? Do I have a crystal ball? Do I know when that's going to happen? Well, not really, but we've got a lot of indicators to tell us that that's going to be pretty soon. So we've got the vaccine, we've got, we're starting to get control of the virus in certain areas, and it's inevitable. We're not going to be in this forever, right? Now, we don't exactly know when that's going to be, but it's got to be pretty soon. So for me, you've got a reduced supply. You've got people that are scared to get into this game right now because of the issues, and they don't quite know how to handle getting people in their properties. So you've got a couple of factors there which people are running away. So the people, and everybody says if you go with the crowd, the money's to be made against the crowd, right?
Yeah. So
if you can get into it now and you can learn your trade and you can get educated and understand how it all works, and it's kind of a level playing field now. So you can come back into the market, you can hit it, and you can start filling your properties quite quickly, especially when this boom comes. It's just going to be crazy. You said it's going to be like a double summer, and I agree with you on that. Yeah,
I think we'll get, hopefully Easter, which is normally good anyway, especially the Easter holidays for the kids. But I think we'll have an Easter boom, and I think that might continue a bit into May, and then I think we'll have the usual. I mean, we had July and August this year; it was just crazy. But and I think we'll have the same again this year. And so if you are listening and you are on the fence about doing it, I would strongly recommend doing it as long as you're getting into it properly. So let's go back. Let's wind the clock, because I had Tracy on before over in Tokyo, and she was telling me she got into it by basically she was having a baby, and she lives in Tokyo, and her family's not from there. So she wanted to buy a place where her family could come and visit and look after the baby. But in the time that she didn't have the family over, she would rent it out on Airbnb and try and cover the costs. That then obviously exploded for her, and that was where her journey started. So I was something very similar, where I was solving a problem in my portfolio, and that's how I got into it, almost by accident. Did you plan to get into it, or was it by accident that you got into it?
No, again, so I'll start at the beginning of my property journey. So I've been in property for about 9 years, but again, it was very much a side hustle at the beginning. And I was doing flips. So I used to work as in a large home improvements company in the UK as an operations director. And I kind of had all the trades around me. So buying properties, doing them up, and then flipping them on was just a nice, easy side hustle for me, really. I didn't know it was called flipping back then. I was just buying property, doing them up, selling them on, and making a few quid out of them. But then I had a small buy-to-let portfolio, so I kept a few properties. And I kind of fell into buy-to-lets as a little bit of a kind of, it was by accident. So I became an accidental landlord, if you like, because I lived in Chester, in the centre of Chester, and I had a 3-story townhouse there. I got a job as an operations director for another kind of home improvements company, and I had to move to Reading for a bit. So I moved out of my house, and my house became a buy-to-let, which was fine for a couple of years. And I used to make a couple of £100 a month on the buy-to-let. Well, we all know on buy-to-lets, if you have a boiler breaks down, you can wipe out your profit for the year in one hit, right? But that wasn't the reason why I did it. Now, I did have that on other properties, but this one, the lady who was in it was great for 2 years. She was paying on time every time, and then it started lapsing. She'd lost her job, and she ended up owing me about £3,500–4,000, which I still haven't had to this day, and I can't find her. I don't know where she'd gone. So I kind of ended up getting her out of the property, and I'd done some training through Progressive, but I didn't do serviced accommodation. I just did one of their master classes where it went through lots of different strategies. And I thought, all right, okay, serviced accommodation, don't know it too much, but if it's going to work, it's a bit of a finger in the air thing. I'll give it a go on this property. I got nothing to lose. Spent a few quid just tarting it up, bit of paint, bit of carpet, some nice furniture in there, put it on the market. And within the first month, £3,500. I was like,
why didn't I do this sooner?
So why didn't I do this sooner? So it's like, so that was so I owned the property, and we all know if you own a property, they're the ones that make the most money, right?
Yeah.
So I thought, right, well, this flipping lark, making money on the property, pulling your money out, and then putting it into serviced accommodation, there must be something in this, right? So in the November of 2018, I did that with my my 3-bed townhouse. In the December, I bought a three-bed masonette in the centre of Chester again, and I changed it into a 4-bedroom masonette, and then put that on the market as well. While that was getting refurbed, I was going out and getting rent-to-rent deals at the same time. So we kind of had a number of different strategies going at the same time. So that's kind of where I started. Sorry if I went on a little bit there.
No, it's fine, mate. It's great. I think everyone likes to really understand where you start from, because I think everyone's story is so different. But I think you know, a lot of the people that we, you know, are surrounded with are starting from a point where they're going to go, you know, straight into coaching, and then that's the way they're going to go and get started. Whereas when I speak to a lot of the, you know, experts in the game and successful entrepreneurs, especially the ones that have been in it a while, probably when the courses weren't so popular and things like that, they kind of, everyone seems to have fallen into it in a different way. But then the main residing factor amongst them all is like how powerful it was instantly of how much it works over a buy-to-let portfolio, and the money that can be made and the cash flow that's generated, which then obviously just pings the light bulb moment off, and you're like, well, I want a bit more of this.
I mean, I wouldn't suggest anybody just takes the plunge in that. That's I did that, and it was a lick of the finger, and kind of it was luck. Now I've had other properties where I've done the same thing on a rent-to-rent basis, and they haven't worked. So we analysed the hell out of everything now. And again,
I think it's easier to take a punt on your own stock because you can always just flip it back, and obviously the margins, you know, a mortgage or whatever, you can quickly just go, actually, I'll just put that back to a buy-to-let or whatever. And I was the same. That's how I ended up. I had a flat I couldn't get rented out, and you know, it's I own it, so it didn't matter either way. You know, it was a total punt. But yeah, I mean, you know, I'm not advocating that you just go and take a rent deal on and take a total punt. I think there's a bit more shot. I actually fell into rent by accident. So, you know, you're saying there, you didn't know flips was the thing. I was the same. So I did it on my first one, and then I had a couple of others that I was buying. So I'd planned to do them as buy-to-lets, but I thought, do you know what, I've just earned well on this. So I naturally put them straight in furniture and on down the short-term rental route. And but then I noticed this one company kept booking. So I thought, I'm going to pick the phone up and ring these. So I was like, why do you keep booking through booking.com? Like, how long are you here for? And, you know, the usual. And sure enough, she's like, oh, this. And she's like, we've actually got loads of other guys up in the area. How many properties have you got? So me being me, I was like, oh, how many beds do you need? And and she was like, it was something daft. Like, I needed to find 16 more beds. And I was like, oh, yeah, I can sort that out for you. Obviously, she told me what she'd pay. I literally put the phone down, rang everybody in my phone book that I thought might have a property. And I went and viewed a few of them. I jumped on your Gumtrees and all the usual stuff. And I just started ringing people and was like, I've got these contractors and I need to find some beds for them. Can I just rent your property off you, or can I do a deal with you or whatever? And then it was I secured 5 properties in 10 days doing that, secured that contract, and away we go. And then after I'd done that, I was talking to someone and they were like, that's called rent to rent, you know? And I was like, what's rent to rent? And then I went online and Googled it, and I was like, "Oh, that's an actual thing."
You thought you were onto something new, right?
So, but then obviously it worked.
What's really great about that is that's kind of like a common sense thing to do, right?
It's just solving a problem, isn't it?
Yeah, solving a problem, and like that's what a lot of property stuff is. It's just it's solving a problem that somebody has and putting a fix in place for it. And that's exactly what you did there, right?
Yeah. And then I saw the cash flow and I was like, this obviously works as a model. I then realized rent to rent was actually a thing. And then I mean, the contracts that I've got on some of the first rent to rent deals are like definitely not the right contracts, but you know, you don't know what you don't know at the time. And you know, luckily, in touch wood, I've got great relationships with all the landlords and we've had no issues, and they love me and I love them. And you know, it just works, you know, harmoniously together.
That's an interesting point, by the way, right? So, and again, I think we talked about this before, but your contract is, people get hung up a lot. And look, I'm not advocating that you shouldn't have the right contracts in place, but people get hung up on the contract thing. Well, you only ever really use them when the shit hits the fan, right? And if you haven't got a good relationship with the landlord or the letting agent, you haven't, you know, if something's really gone wrong, generally, how often do you use a contract? It's very rare, right?
Yeah. Nothing goes that wrong in this business. Like, people paint these pictures on the social media. It's like, oh, I had a party in my house last night and I wrecked my house and da. And yeah, okay, that happens. But if you've got a business and you're protected with either insurances, Airbnb host guarantee, or you're taking deposits, or you've got, like I've got very good contracts, and then I just take them to court if they don't pay the invoice. You know, nothing ever really goes wrong. It's more the hassle of having to sort it out than the financial implication.
Absolutely agree.
But it scares so many people from getting in the industry, and it scares a lot of landlords off from wanting to work with companies like ours, because they're like, oh, I've seen it on the news where so-and-so had a party, or I've heard about this. And you know, I firmly believe, like, I've got tenants, as you have. Mm-hmm. I look at the condition of some of the properties we get back after they leave versus ours that get cleaned twice a week. You know, it's just mental that people think that a tenant is a better solution.
Well, I always say this to when I have buy-to-lets, the condition that I get my house back in cost me more than the quick fixes, because they are quick fixes with serviced accommodation that you have to do in the interim, right? So if you've got somebody in your house for 6 months and they're continuously doing stuff to it that's going to knacker it, that is a big problem to have.
Yeah.
The short bursts of a party in the property where they scuff a wall, or, you know, they might break something, they're easily fixed. It's the stuff that's over a longer period of time, the cumulative problems that you get are the bigger problems.
And your guests normally pay for it anyway, because it'll be them that's damaged it. So it actually, the financial implications next to nothing. They're always like, they're almost paying to repair your properties. I mean, I've got one at the minute. I had a phone call from the council the other week, just before Christmas. And they were like, do you own XYZ property? I was like, yeah. They're like, we've had complaints about the tenant from the neighbors. Basically, there's dog, you know what, all over the backyard, and it's not getting cleaned up, and it stinks, right? So I didn't even know he had a dog, for starters. So, you know, talk about tenants. It then transpires he's got 2 Great Danes in my 2-bed flat.
No.
So the council went round to speak to them, and apparently slammed the door in their face the minute he asked, "Are you so and so?" And now he's not paying rent. So that's the type of shit that you have to deal with being a landlord at times. And God knows what that property's coming back like. I mean, I just hope he stays there for a long time, because I mean, he needs to start paying his rent.
The only thing that you've got with like a long-term tenant like that, with 2 big dogs, where else are they going to go now they're in your property? They're going to stay there forever, right?
Well, he's not paying his rent at the minute, so he might not be staying there forever. But you know, but I'm all for supporting people when they lose their jobs and stuff like that. I think, you know, that's part of being a landlord. You know, it's not just black and white. I think you do have to put a bit of an emotional hat on at times, but at the same time, they have to come to their part of the agreement. And but yeah. So what's next for you? Where do you want to take the business? Where do you see yourself going?
Yeah, so look, our goals for this year is we've got a huge growth plan for this year in managed clients. So not so much the sort of rent to rent per se. We've got a nice little system around our business now. So managing other people's properties is the main area of growth for the serviced accommodation business this year. We're getting into sort of more commercial conversion stuff. So we're in the process with planning for we bought an old guest house in North Wales, and we're in the process of planning for that to turn it into 10 apartments. We've got a training business as well, which we're growing nicely. So there's a few different things we've got going on. Keeping nice and good.
The bed and breakfast, is that going to be much of a change, or is it just sort of slight getting it into like an apart hotel type structure?
No, so we're excuse me, we're changing it from so we wanted a number of different exit strategies on this one, because again, we haven't got this crystal ball. We're not quite sure what's going to happen this year. So we bought an old guest house, which we are changing from C1, which is the guest house class, into C3. So we're changing it into apartments rather than keeping it as a guest house. That gives us a few different options. We can either sell it when we're finished, we can refinance it, pull all our money out and do it through serviced accommodation, or it works as just a normal buy-to-let as well. I mean, I prefer not to put it as a buy-to-let, because we know all the benefits you get from serviced accommodation with, you know, your capital allowances and stuff. So yeah, but I'm really initially I was wanting to kind of sell it and bring a chunk of money out, but the more I think of it, I'd rather keep it there and just let it grow and grow wealth in the background over a period of time. I think I'm changing my kind of thought process with it, rather than getting rid, keeping, and letting it grow over a period of time. So
I think it's hard to find stuff like that. So, you know, once you've found it and done it, you know, why offload it? It's I'm just venturing into my, I guess, first big, you know, I've done your BRR to the death, you know, all sorts of sizes, flats all the way up to 5-6 bed HMOs, you know, so I've kind of done that and got the experience there. But then within the same week, I've had 2 offers accepted on one's 2 houses, which I'll hopefully get. I've got the drawings yesterday, 7 flats out of it, and run them on STR. And then the other one is a disused commercial building, which I think, well, we met on Monday and we were thinking 4 floors, but I think we could get 5 floors out of it, which would be 16 to 20 flats. Yeah. So I think we could get 16 to 20 flats out of that. So that's going to be like a monster of a project. But yeah, so I think as you say, I think as your journey goes, and you probably never thought you'd ever do this sort of stuff several years ago. And that's the great thing for anyone listening. Like, this does move quickly, and you can quite quickly get there as well. You know, it's just, for me, that seems like the most, you know, the next logical step. And that's where the cash will be going this year, and hopefully get, you know, 26, 30 odd apartments out of it, you know, and then run them on short-term rental.
Game changer stuff, that, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, the numbers on it, I don't want to get ahead of myself because, you know, we haven't even submitted planning yet. So, you know, there's plenty of hurdles to overcome, I'm sure. But, you know, based on what I've looked at, and if we run it as a commercial operation on short-term rentals, I think it's worth like 2.6 million by the time it's finished.
Wow.
You know, which is like
where
numbers
is
that interesting. In the northeast. So, and it just fits perfectly into our model that we've got, you know, with how we run them, and, you know, where we're
that's
popular.
The beauty of this stuff, right?
Yeah.
I mean, do you call it like super rent or something when you take a couple of channels? Is it you that calls it super rent?
I call it now super rent. For me, is like turning a property into a HMO or an SA, like getting the extra rent out of it. That's kind of what I call it.
But my point being, so for example, your apartments there, I don't know if your exit strategies to sell or whether you keep them. So you're buying below market value. You're doing the refurbishment, although it's on a larger scale. You're then going to refinance it, take all your money out, and then you're going to put it through a serviced accommodation route.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a number of different strategies in one, and that's what I want to really build on this year. Is taking the kind of stuff that I've done before with the flips and the buy to let and whatever that might be, and just putting a number of different strategies in line on the same project.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. And that's where most of the money's to be made, especially if you can pull all your money out, then you get an infinite return, right?
Yeah. I mean, where the money's to be made, and I got a shock at this, is development finance. The interest that those boys charge for the short-term funding is like, I was like, I'm in the wrong game here. I need to get like a load of cash behind me and start lending it out to these developers.
The commercial building that you're getting planning for as well, is it empty at the moment?
Yeah, it's derelict, 4 years.
Right. So you check with your local authority as well, because they're doing a lot of sort of, they call them grants, but they're not really grants. You have to pay them back. But they're doing interest-free loans where you can take substantial amounts of money for development to turn it from a derelict building or a house to a home. I know the Welsh Assembly are doing a lot of that right now. We're applying for that on the ones in North Wales. So it's definitely worth looking at.
Yeah. It's like a regeneration thing, isn't it? You know, they just want to get the buildings back up to scratch. There's pigeons all over this place, and there's all sorts.
Make sure there's no bats in there.
No, I haven't seen any bats yet. I've only been in there a few times. No, it needs it'll be a good project, that like 12 to 18 months probably. And looking forward to that. And just, I think it's just it just feels to me, I think you're probably in a similar position. It just feels like the next logical step to, you know, move into.
I'm really interested in the stuff you're doing in Dubai as well. I mean, so I love Dubai, and when you said you were starting this off in Dubai, I was like, "Oh, that sounds like might be an opportunity here somewhere."
No, there's so I lived there for a few years, as most people know, and I absolutely love it. I didn't really want to come home, but we did, and I just, every time I go back, we try and take the kids back once every year, and it's just a phenomenal place, and I just love it. And So I kind of had this in my head in 2018 to do it. 2019. Then obviously COVID hit early 2020, and it was a bit earlier over there as well. So that kind of put the brakes on it. But it was full steam ahead as of sort of December last year, and then kind of
give you opportunities over there, because I'm sure there'll be people with empty flats and.
Well, that's why I was like, this will work over there after, doing the analysis that we do, looking at nightly rates, looking at what the rents are and things like that. And the opportunity that's out there for landlords who've got empty properties, and can turn them into cash. And so I just think there's a whole host of opportunity. But like anything, I think you've just got to, get out there, put your stamp in the ground, prove that it works, and then you can start building on that. And that's kind of, what we've done here, and no doubt what you've done as well. And then it kind of multiplies, doesn't it? And so yeah, but I mean, there's also, probably a bit of an emotional, well, I can also then go back a bit more often than I would probably like as well. So it ticks a personal box as well. It's not just about the business. So, but it's quite, I have had a lot of DMs about this, obviously speaking about it and asking questions, and it's not as easy as just cracking on over here and setting a limited company up. And there's a lot more costs to it, and Shake has to be 51% ownership of your business.
I was saying that the other day on Clubhouse. I mean, what's that all about? Like, that's just like
I think it's just so they keep like they just control all the businesses, don't they, in their country? So they've got full control. So you can never I'd imagine, so you can never take the business offshore or anything like that, and they don't actually take they don't take 51% of the money. It's just they own it at 51%. So it's sort of effectively they've got restrictions over the company pretty much. It's a great country. It's a funny country at the same time. But if you understand it and buy into it and get into it, I think there's a lot of money to be made. I think it can open up a nice lifestyle choice as well. And I think there's a lot of opportunity out there, because there's towers and towers of these empty apartments. And the good thing about them as well is, like, they're split mints. Like, you're not renting a rundown. It's got damp issues. It needs a new kit. It's like these apartments are like 1,500, 2,000 square foot for 2 and 3 bedders. They're huge. And, they're all, white tile floors, nicely decorated, and nice kitchens and pretty modern bathrooms. So
exactly what you want when you're getting into SA, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like the perfect property. Literally, you just have to put furniture in them and possibly paint a few feature walls to match the sort of interior design. But so I'm really looking forward to that. So as we record this, it's the 3rd of Feb. If you listen on the podcast, and I spoke to my team on the ground out there 2 days ago, and they've pretty much about to go into lockdown over there. I think they've stopped the nightclubs and the bars and restaurants opening if they're not part of a hotel. They've got minimum capacities in the restaurants. The schools have been sent home. So we're not stopping deal sourcing, but the way that we're agreeing contracts and having conversations is just a bit more, when this is over type of stuff, or we'll pay this rent until then. But also it's like, when I first moved there, you had to pay your rent. You had to pay your year's rent up front. You had to pay rent, one check. So they do like a check system. So like this is why I also think
another thing you were saying, like they're still on checks, like right.
Yeah, it's just so safe out there, and you just can't default stuff. So like you just go straight to prison, like do not pass go. You're going straight in, and so it's relaxed a bit now. So you can kind of get 4 checks, but you still got to pay like quarterly up front. So I think if I was advising anyone about it, from what I've experienced so far, is I think you do need a bit of cash behind you to be able to just get it going and fund the initial sort of setup costs of it all. But I think once it's ticking, there's some good money being made out there. I'll keep you posted, obviously. There's, I'm all about sharing the wealth. You can't have all the property. It's impossible to own it all, rent it all, manage it all. Right? Yeah, so I tell my kids that, but they don't think the same.
That's all we keep saying, right?
Yeah. So, Dave, awesome. I mean, unless you've got any questions, I mean, as always, an awesome session, and it's good to bounce backwards and forwards. You are hosting an awesome room. If anybody is interested in property and you have managed to get on Clubhouse, Dave and a few others set a room up called the Property Coffee Meet. Yeah, property coffee. Yeah. And 7 o'clock every morning, 7 days a week, a couple of hours it runs for, and there's a whole host of experts speaking on it. It's not just serviced accommodation. In fact, I feel at the minute we're not getting much of a look in. We don't talk much about serviced accommodation. It's all
great,
about
what I love about it though. Is, if it was all about serviced accommodation, I wouldn't be learning anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I mean, it comes up. This serviced accommodation stuff does come up, but I'm sat there every morning, and I said this morning on it, there was about 4 or 5 golden nuggets in the first hour that I was like, wow, I would never have known that.
Yeah, I mean, you've got service accommodation experts, you've got development guys, you've got finance people, we've got deal sources, we've got mindset coaches, BRR. There's like everybody up on that panel.
You name it, they're there, right? Planning, everything.
And we have Anne talking about a sex life, which probably may not want to know about, but it's a great room, and I think you can tell by the following it's getting that everyone really enjoys it as well. So get involved with that, and if anyone else wants to connect with you, Dave, how do they, Instagram, Facebook, where do they find you?
Through the normal channels. I'm Dave Goodfellow on Facebook, Instagram. It's Iconic Property. All the normal channels. We've got a group, Iconic Property Community, that anybody's welcome to come and join and put any value in that they want. Clubhouse is the big one at the moment. That seems to be going really well. So that's the property coffee meet every morning from 7 till 9. We're here to help. And I think the great thing about the Clubhouse room and any of the channels that we have, they're very much about giving value and sharing, just like you are as well, Ryan. So it's all great.
Cool. Awesome, buddy. Well, thank you again. Thanks for your time. I know you're busy, so I really appreciate it.
No problem. See ya.
Cheers.